For anyone that thought that the bull run was over, that's been put to rest this week, and Hedera isn't taking its foot off the gas. The Hedera token space has welcomed some major developments. AI is absolutely on fire, and we have Rob back to talk about the Reserve Bank of Australia and everything they're doing. Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, here once again to bring you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So we're going to start with the biggest story in crypto this week, and that's that Bitcoin made a new all-time high. After the dip experienced the past few months, there was a lot of talk about this bull cycle being over. This move pretty much kills that narrative, but we still have two unanswered questions. First, how much longer is this going to last, which is a tough one, and the second, will there be an alt season? The latter is probably most relevant to us, even though I would love to know the timeline as well. So despite many commentators saying there won't be an alt season, I don't think this is going to be the case if Bitcoin continues higher and then holds those levels. The first reason for this is the market has been overly focused, understandably, on the top altcoin, and that's Ethereum, which has struggled more than most. Something that we've hinted at for years, Ethereum's inability to scale has been more generally recognized, and for a platform that carried the hopes of being the future of the financial rails, that's a big problem. That said, while Bitcoin's digital gold narrative is strong and mainly unchallenged, the utility coin space has far more competition. Without question, Bitcoin has won the store of value race for now. But there's no clear winner or even leader in which of these public networks will replace legacy, payment, market, and supply chain rails, as well as a slew of other utility applications that I have no doubt will be taken over by public DLTs in years to come. I see utility tokens as comparable to the energy markets. They will be the lifeblood of the new digital economy, just like the oil and energy markets are the lifeblood of the physical economy. And make no mistake, the oil markets are much larger than the gold market. And as the digital economy develops, I expect the same will be true. As the cream rises and the top platforms become more clear, I expect their tokens to make significant gains on Bitcoin. Now, this next point is a microcosm, but I noticed something when Bitcoin broke its all-time high just a few days ago and then took a break. The alts outperformed. Now, of course, this was a really short time frame, but I certainly recognized the pattern from past cycles. It reminded me that human emotions still work the same way, and as the bull market proves itself, investors will reach out that risk curve. There's no question that Bitcoin has had tremendous tailwinds with ETF and institutional involvement, but we can't forget that's all coming for the alt space as well, and it's better to be looking ahead to those developments than behind. Another narrative I reject is that because capital flows are entering through the ETFs, it won't enter the alts. I don't think that makes much sense because in many cases, it's still legacy crypto investors that hold that Bitcoin that's being bought up by the ETFs. And they'll do the same thing they've done in past cycles and look for the next 10 or 100x to park that capital. Finally, even though alts did pull back following the post-election spike, HBAR is still up 400% since October. Algo is up 100%, XRP is up 350%, and Cardano is up 140%, compared to Bitcoin being up 80%. So alts can outperform. So who knows what's going to happen in the months to come, but I think writing off an alt season is an example of recency bias. Of course, Bitcoin has had a fantastic run over the past 12 months, but that doesn't mean that altcoins aren't going to have their time to shine as well. So the next thing I want to get into is some Hedera fundamentals. We saw another spike in the Hedera USDC liquidity. We now have about $180 million in the stablecoin minted and circulating on Hedera. My mistake, now I'm looking at it, we're almost to 200 million. We still don't know who the entity or entities are that are responsible for the 3,000% increase since last September, but moving from irrelevant to the top 10 is pretty impressive. As I've said many times in the past, now that the USDC infrastructure is being put in place, I think Hedera will outcompete due to the inherent capabilities of USDC built on Hedera. As an example, Zep highlighted the fees for withdrawing USDC from Crypto.com. To withdraw USDC from the platform, Hedera is 65% cheaper than its closest competitor Sui, 75% cheaper than Base, 99% cheaper than Kronos, Solana, and XRP, and 99.8% cheaper than Avalanche. Now, of course, this is all because the underlying Hedera protocol is that much more efficient and thus cheaper, and that's just the beginning. HUSDC inherits Hedera's fairness, security, true finality, and everything else. Jeremy Allaire, CEO of Circle, issuer of USDC, said, "With Hedera, enterprises and financial institutions can access deep liquidity across countries and platforms, making USDC on Hedera an optimal asset for cross-border transactions and trades of all kinds." Reading that, I can't help but think that Circle would be a perfect Hedera Governing Council member. But we had some news come out from another one of the Hedera Governing Council members that's going to have a really big impact on the HBAR economy. BitGo announced they're adding custody support for several new tokens this week, which included Dovu, Sauce, Pack, Karate, and Jam. You might be thinking the ecosystem doesn't really need a custody solution, since to get the benefits from these tokens, you have to hold them personally. But it's not about the utility of these tokens. BitGo handles custody for over 1,500 institutions, including many exchanges. In most cases, those exchanges need BitGo to support custody of an asset, so now that they're supporting HTS tokens, the door should be open for many more listings. Now, Hedera's not giving up an inch in a sector that we know is going to have a tremendous impact on the Hedera network, and that's AI. The first thing that I want to touch on here is Patches, our longtime friend that does some great work in the space, actually gave a presentation at Consensus, and I wanted to show off some highlights.
Things like Open Convey from it's a Hedera, Hyro, Hashgraph Online. It's on-chain communication and discoverability, where agents can, in a decentralized environment, find each other, understand what their features are, can talk and decide what the commerce is, and then in one message, they can execute that commerce using HIP 991, which is a Hedera HIP, which allows two agents, decentralized, to find each other, communicate, decide on commerce, execute, and disconnect without any centralized entity. It's just agent-to-agent communication, and Web3 brings that autonomy to these changes in computing that we're seeing happening all around us. And then also AITP, which is Artificial Intelligence Transfer Protocol, like HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. NEAR is doing a JSON mapping of how can these messages be constructed. So just if you have standards of conversation for agents, and everyone agrees to those standards, you can have decentralized conversations between agents. And that's what AITP is attempting to do. So I fundamentally believe that Hedera is the backbone of the agentic internet. It has fairness and security. So with asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, you don't have a mempool, you don't have MEV, and so if you have a swarm of 18 agents and you have a task that the first 10 are going to get paid, and they all post at the same nanosecond to a topic ID on Hedera to say that I'm done, here's the job, it's finished, it fair orders all of those through ABFT, and then you just take the first 10. It's provable on-chain, and this is imperative. There is no MEV that can change and have a backdoor deal of an agent always getting a job. There is no way of attacking a mempool through gas. Hedera has the fairness built in fundamentally to its groundbreaking hashgraph technology that enables AI to have trustlessness in communications, and having swarms of bots have trustlessness of timestamping and order. Order of compute is going to be imperative, and Hedera is just fundamentally built for that ordering. It's also very simple. I don't really trust AI to create a Solidity smart contract of an ERC20 token. Launching Solidity is really not simple, and I wouldn't trust an autonomous AI to do it. But Hedera has token service, which is just 3 lines of code, and the protocol has a token. You can still token gate, you still have all of the flexibility of an ERC, but you have the network of Hedera being the protocol that has all the complexity built in, and the agent can't mess it up. It can't introduce a security flaw, and you get all the value of tokenization. It just makes sense. Why would agents not choose this? It's also extremely versatile. So with the Hedera consensus service, you can put up to 1 kilobyte of data onto a topic ID, which has a unique identifier, and that data can be anything. And so it can be a conversation in JSON using AITP or using Open Convey. It could be orders of this is the data hash of the finished product, and again, like a swarm of them could be posting. But the fact that this service exists, has implicit monetization abilities, has ability of authenticity of data with a running hash of all the content on the topic ID, this is pretty dense. I'm going over a lot here, but it's investigate Hedera consensus service if you're building with AI, because it is the solution when it comes to understanding ordering, understanding consensus, and having data authenticity with your AI. It's so simple, and it has consistency in fees. It's the best part. So up to a kilobyte of data is around 1/100th of a penny to put onto the network always. It does not fluctuate in gas. Hedera has a consistent peg to USD fee structure. So when an AI is trying to figure out what it's going to do over the next month and how much it's going to cost, it can get it and calculate it down to the penny of exactly what it's going to be and then execute that. Without that fluctuation, you have that consistency of compute with the versatility of HCS, the simplicity of HTS with the token service, and the ability to have fair ordering and security built in. Hedera just makes sense for a lot of use cases to supplement other networks. Just like intranets in the 2000s, it's not just going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's it. It's going to be a patchwork of a bunch of different networks that have really good execution in a vertical, and I believe Hedera will be the helping backbone that connects this patchwork with authenticity in its hashgraph technology.
So I love the passion that we're seeing coming out of Patches there, and I think he's absolutely right. I think that Hedera offers the perfect solutions for so many of the issues that we're seeing in AI. So the next thing in AI that I want to touch on is last week I promised that I was going to get Jay Cool on to go over the new AI studio that's joining a couple of the other studios that have been launched in the past. So let's check it out. So you see Jay Cool there, so you know this is going to be something about AI. Jay, welcome back.
Hey, Brandon, man, thanks a lot for having me on. And yeah, obviously AI, when the topic's AI, I'm here. But Brandon, you know, I'm ready to talk anything Hedera. I'm always happy to join as well.
All right, sounds good. So what I want to get into today is we already have the asset tokenization studio, we already have the stablecoin studio, but a new one just launched last week, and it's the AI studio. Can you tell us about it?
Amazing, yeah. So big announcement recently, the AI studio. Now, essentially, what this AI studio is doing is, if you've been sort of following the Hedera ecosystem, you would have seen loads and loads of stuff coming from myself, from other people in the ecosystem about all of these sort of pockets of AI goodies that have been released. So, for example, we had the Hedera Agent Kit SDK. We had some outputs from recent hackathons. Lots of stuff's been going on, but it's just been sort of spread out, and there's not really been one centralized place which aggregates it all together. And is sort of okay, if you want to do some stuff on Hedera with AI, go to AI Studio. And that's exactly what AI Studio is. It brings in all of the amazing stuff that's been going on rapidly over the past few months and past few weeks and months, and just puts it into one place where developers can check out and start building, or businessmen can start looking at, okay, well, what is the possibilities? We've got quotes on there. We've got GitHub repositories, which developers can clone. We've got use cases. Everything sort of on there. It's your go-to place if you want to start building on AI on Hedera.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So the next thing I want to touch on is, as you alluded to there, there's new stuff coming out about Hedera AI, whether that's standards, whether that's tooling, whether that's just the capabilities of Hedera to fit the use cases of these AI applications. Now, we're going to leave the use cases themselves to the side right now, but when it comes to, you know, the Hedera capability for these use cases, when it comes to these toolings, these standards, these things that we're putting together, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to just put it at one, because we've got some of the sort of core SDKs that we've been building internally. That's your Hedera Agent SDK, your integration with Eliza. These tools, when we've been developing them, we've been speaking to the end users, and but end users in this case are customers like people like Hashpack, who are potentially or Cabilo. These are people who have got applications that are being used by tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people maybe, and these are the people who, if they integrate AI using the Agent Kit SDK or using other agent kits, will be able to provide this AI interface for their users. So we've been speaking with ecosystem members like them and understanding, okay, when we build these tools, we're investing our money and capital into building these tools so that the community can benefit. And it's really been sort of going, okay, the end users, what are they going to require? And a big one which comes up is this idea of human in the loop. And you hear it all the time when it comes to AI. And in the context of Hedera or Web3, human in the loop really means having it so that Wallet Connect pops up and the user can sign the transaction after verifying, okay, this has not been some hallucinated jargon, or it's not going to be transferring loads of money out of my account. Now, we've built the infrastructure for that to be used. And I'm really excited for that to actually now be used down the sort of value chain. So potential vendors, potential people in our ecosystem can actually use it and provide this more safe human-in-the-loop functionality, which allows end users to basically chat with an LLM, say, I want to swap this, I want to buy that token, I want to do this, I want to do that, and have that screen pop up, okay, this transaction has been built, click execute. Now, that's stuff which we've been building internally, but I also want to give a big shout out to stuff that's been going on, particularly by Michael Cantor over at Hashgraph Online. I mean, we just ran a really successful hackathon and the quality of output was unbelievable. Some of the projects were just so good, and they were leveraging some of the Hashgraph Online, the HCS standards. And that is another thing which I'm really quite excited about. This HCS 10 or Open Convey, essentially what it does, it allows a decentralized communication rails, communication platform for AI agents to communicate with other AI agents. And really cheap, it's all built on the consensus service, totally decentralized. And that's something where I think, as we did see in the hackathon, but also moving forward, we're going to see a lot of interesting innovations around there.
I've brought this up, and I actually had a disagreement with somebody in the ecosystem a few days ago about how, Michael's Convey and those standards, it can really make it so HBAR could become kind of the native currency for the AI space. And with it being 10 times cheaper than the stable coins out there, again, it could just make a lot of sense. So now I want to, since you talked about the hackathon, we have these use cases. You have to have more than just the tools. Which use cases do you think are going to hit the Hedera network first? And then a little on further down the line, which ones do you think are going to have the most impact on the Hedera network in terms of AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think sort of off the back of the hackathon, I mean, when we saw a lot of, well, there were two types. We had people who were building AI applications, which are just for reading state. So for example, one of the top submissions was like it interacted with the source to swap APIs using Open Convey as like a communication rail, but it could be done in other ways as well. And it was interacting with the source to swap APIs to understand which pools are being traded the most and get sort of that read-only data. It wasn't actually writing anything to the blockchain though. On the other side of things, we had lots of people who were submitting projects using that human-in-the-loop type style where they are actually transacting on the blockchain. And I think this, to me, is really, we're at a point where, okay, AI, the tooling's there, just the whole sort of psychology around AI is that, yeah, it's here to stay. People are gradually adopting it more and more into their applications. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing these human-in-the-loop chat user interface and you sort of sign a transaction after the AI packages it up and sends it to you. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing those in some of the applications that we're interacting with day in, day out.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, you were talking about Hashpack and Saucer Swap and Bonzo. These are the first ones that I see actually using it, these degen type applications. They're always the first to use everything. But how do you think they're going to impact the enterprises out there? I'm sure they're going to be looking at some of these things as proofs of concept for ways they might be able to leverage AI in Hedera.
Yeah, I think obviously from the enterprise side, you can't talk about Hedera and AI without talking about companies like Prove AI and obviously Equity Labs. And they're going sort of really on the data provenance layer, making sure that AI trading and inference is being accounted for and auditable in a transparent and trusted way. It's been really important, still is really important. Potentially something that we could maybe be seeing now that we have AI agents which are able to trade and transact, is maybe having some autonomous AI agents which are suitable for trading, or any sort of business where actually they want to start issuing NFTs maybe to represent some sort of commodity or real-world asset tokenization. That whole process now, it doesn't need to be done by a software engineer writing smart contracts. It can be done just by a normal person with a large language model and getting them to start minting tokens. And then that AI agent is calling the asset tokenization studio, which obviously we've built. It's very robust. It's been audited, really open source, good high quality stuff for building RWAs. But actually you can have that sort of LLM interface, which just makes that barrier to entry much lower.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting. So it could take some of the load off the smart contract service, which we know is fairly inefficient, and put that onto AI. And then that can interact with the other services we have that are a lot more efficient at the base layer.
Yeah. I mean, it still obviously depends. There's a time and place that there is sort of sometimes you need to use a smart contract, and then you still sort of be a victim of the EVM's lower performance relative to the native Hedera token service and the native services. But actually, this is a bit of a segue. There's a really interesting new Hedera improvement proposal, which is, I think it's in testnet now. It's definitely pretty close. HIT 551. And actually what this allows you to do is allows you to bundle native token transactions, native Hedera service transactions into sort of one block and submit that to be executed, which gives it smart contract-esque functionality. It's kind of like smart contract with smart contracts, where you get the benefits of the native service, you get the benefits of the speed, the price, and the ABFT. Well, I think even our smart contracts are ABFT because it's all expensive. But you get all of the benefits from the native service, particularly the high throughput. Obviously, the native service is much higher throughput than EVM, and it's all done. So you get those benefits without needing to use smart contract. A good example is, okay, let's say I need to have I've got a token which I want to make a soulbound NFT. So soulbound NFT, obviously, once you receive it, you're not allowed to transfer it at all. Now, this can be achieved by using the freeze functionality on the Hedera token. So you create a token, you send it to someone, and you freeze it. Now, traditionally, before HIT 551, there's two ways where you can do this. The first way is you send it to them, and then in a separate transaction, you freeze it. Now, there is a risk that there's a small gap of time in between where they might just send it elsewhere, and then sort of the whole thing is void. The other more robust option, which was probably the only viable option up until HIT 551, is you do it inside of a smart contract. So you have a smart contract which transfers the token and then freezes it, and it wraps it all in one sort of smart contract function call using the Hedera system contracts. And that then eliminates the risk of someone being able to sort of transfer because it's sort of done atomically in the smart contract. But it's much more expensive. It requires developers to know Solidity, and it's not as quick. The throughput's not as high. With HIT 551, you can now bundle those transactions into a batch transaction and just submit that batch transaction, and it does it as though it was in a smart contract, but with all of the benefits of it not being a smart contract.
Eliminating those trade-offs. We love to hear it. So
exactly.
Before we let you go here, I know we have the demo day, which is a day ahead for us, but by the time this comes on and everybody sees it, it's going to be behind. Is there anything else that you'd like to pass on?
Well, I mean, I think if you didn't tune into the demo day, definitely have a look at some of the posts which come afterwards. I mean, we had about 300 participants, I think 270 or something like that. However many submissions, it's a couple of weeks ago now. 14 of the top submissions have come through, and I was looking through the list actually at the moment, and even the ones who were in 15th, 16th, 17th place who didn't make the cut, they were still really, really good. Definitely check them out. Some of the most innovative ideas that I've seen. I mean, literally look at them, sort of blew my mind away. I will just say this sort of one which I was looking at, I was like, wow, this is cool. There was some guy built a sort of a whole protocol on Hedera, which basically you can use old phones to run large language models on, small quantized ones, so sort of lightweight LLMs. And then you can sort of use the Hedera consensus service, HCS 10, to submit messages to prove that this phone is active, to prove that this phone is connected. You then get that sort of auditability that, okay, this phone is hosting an LLM, it is live. And then other people can pay that phone a micro fee to use the LLM for inference. And I was like, wow, this is just so cool. So there's plenty of ideas like that. Definitely tune into some of the content which we've released after the fact. And obviously, hopefully you did tune into the live thing as well, because there's lots of VCs involved. You've got other ecosystems coming on. Everyone involved, particularly, again, Hashgraph Online and some of my colleagues at Hashgraph have done an absolutely amazing job in orchestrating this thing in such small time as well. We barely had any notice because we're just like, let's do it. So it's going to be really great.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes out of the hackathon and the rest of the Hedera AI space. Jay, like always, thanks for coming on, and I hope we can have you back real soon.
Of course, my man. Appreciate it.
So after hearing how excited Jay was about that one participant in the AI hackathon, I had to go and find it from demo day. And unsurprisingly, it's actually Hashpack. So let's take a look at that real quick as well.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyler. I'm the CTO at Hashpack, and I'm going to be walking you through what we are calling internally the Hashpack Concierge. and any details are subject to change. So as a wallet, we're kind of in a unique position when it comes to user experience. We're a trusted place to keep keys. We got a solid set of existing UI components that users are familiar with, and we have a robust set of data systems that we're able to draw on. This allows us to have a very frictionless flow when users are looking to interact with AI systems. No connecting a wallet, no needing to switch context to approve transactions, and all while not giving the AI a set of private keys. We're pulling in the Hedera docs as a RAG to kind of increase the understanding the agent has of the technical bits of Hedera. And we're leveraging integrations with our ecosystem partners, SaucerSwap, Centex, HGraph, etc. And currently the agent has the personality of a dog. This personality will be customizable. So we added a button here. So if you hit that, it pulls up the agent. So this will walk you through a few of the capabilities our agent has. The focus here was more building a scalable architecture that allowed for a human in the loop as well as rich replies. The most basic example here is asking it to tell you about your account. We pass along the account ID, so you just need to tell it to ask you about the account. It'll analyze it and give you all the info. Taking this a bit further, you can ask if it sees any security red flags. It'll look at your account and tell you if you have any automatic token associations, allowances, and kind of give you an overview of that. The next example here is token information. So we'll use GIB as an example since it's hot right now. So this hits the mirror node, gets the info. Since there's multiple tokens with this name, we're displaying a UI here that lets you kind of pick which one you mean. This will pull up, all the relevant information like supply, keys, price, as well as display a button here. So you can click that, which pulls up our existing token data, token information screen. There you go. So nice and integrated. You can take this a step further. I'm going to skip forward here a bit and ask it about the holders of the token. So that's hitting the mirror nodes as well, parsing all that data, and it'll show you the breakdown of the users here, the average balance, etc. And you can even take that a step further and ask it to do some technical analysis on it, which is, of course, not financial advice. And the final example here is sending a transaction. So we'll send a small amount of HBAR and make a donation to the staking account here. So 0.1 HBAR to account 800. It shows a rich transaction preview, similar to when you do a transaction with a dApp. So that allows you to review the transaction and approve it. And things like swaps and stuff are pretty trivial to implement after that. But we see this appealing to new users looking for guidance and how to use the ecosystem, as well as existing users trying to find more information that they had to use other tools for historically, or do common actions like associate a token. Some of you may have guessed by the name, this system will tie into our PAC token as well as our Concierge Collectibles NFT series. So queries here are paid using micropayments of PAC, as well as there'll be some discounts for NFT holders.
So great stuff from all the participants in the AI hackathon. If you want to take a look at everything else that has been built, you can go ahead and check that out on Genfinity. They hosted the entire demo day and did a great job. There's actually another really big hackathon that's coming down the line here, but that's going to have to wait until next week. So before we get to that, there is one more thing in the AI space that I had to focus on, and that is coming from Validation Cloud that's actually bringing something to market that's built on Hedera. It's an AI engine that's designed to allow users to interact with DeFi protocols and access blockchain data through natural language queries without needing technical expertise or knowledge. Validation Cloud said despite DeFi accounting for over 50% of all on-chain activity, accessing and interpreting the data remains a major hurdle for most users and institutions. Big Four accounting and consulting firm Ernst & Young said AI and Web3 could address shortcomings in each other. Web3 could help AI tackle trust issues, and AI could help overcome Web3's adoption challenges. And one of the things that Michael Cantor from Hashgraph Online hinted at a little bit ago was that AI agents don't carry any of the preconceived notions that human decision makers might make. They're just going to go with the very best solution. And I think we're putting all the tools and infrastructure in place to make sure Hedera is at the top of that list. Now we're going to take a hard left turn. We're going to get out of AI and we're going to get into meme coins and gaming with Joe from SmackM. So some of you might recognize we have Joe from Earthlings, but he's going to be talking about a game that's been developed by the Earthlings studio, but isn't Earthlings branded, and that's SmackM. Joe, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm having fun with everything that's going on. So SmackM, there's a lot of really cool things about it. One of them is that you guys are the largest sponsor for the upcoming Karate Combat prize pool. I'm really excited about that. We're coming up with a really good ad for all the teams that are participating in that. But to start off, why don't you just tell us about SmackM?
Okay. SmackM was the brainchild of Patrick, the founder of Earthlings. So I've been on the Earthlings team since almost the very beginning. And as a promise to the community, we were going to have 3 or more mini or what we call add-on games for the brand before we launch our big game, Earthlings.land. So the first one came out, which you've promoted and we appreciate, and you're very familiar with, Steam Runner. That went on the Google and Apple store. It's a beautiful game, fun, shows you a lot of what we're going to be able to do in Earthlings land. But we wanted something fun and for the community. And we also wanted to see if we could get something published quickly on Telegram. So Patrick and his brother Marcel started sketching out some whatever could be the funniest. And Patrick has a love-hate relationship, mostly hate, with mosquitoes, and said, what if we have a family in the house trying to let mom sleep because mosquitoes keep trying to get to her and there are all these distractions. And we went to one of our artists from the Earthlings studio and said, hey, can you draw us a mosquito? And we started building a game. And it was 3D. And what we realized is the 2D style kind of fit better. So it looks more like a cartoon. So we switched to that. And as we're building the game, we contacted folks from Hashpack and Syntax and said, well, would you be interested in doing a community-based token game with us? So originally it was going to be, we'll pass out some Earthling Steam tokens, some Pack tokens, some Syntax tokens, and we'll see how it goes from there. And as development progressed, a few months went by and the markets were still a bit iffy. So we thought about making an off-branded token for the game, just for people to go in, play and earn. And then we could do small distributions for other Hedera branded token. So that's what we started building. We were laying out some tokenomics, and then Meme Job launched. So it was the perfect segue into a mosquito meme, a fun game, and building levels and layers with other brands. So you've seen the family room. If you've played the game, Smack Mosquito in our Telegram. Just join our Telegram. Go get it. You'll see the family room, which was the original brainchild of Patrick. And then the next board is Dino with a cameo from Grelf, which is hilarious because even though it's just a cameo from Grelf, it's probably one of my funniest Grelf scenes I've ever seen. And then there's a new one coming out, which hopefully at some point in your show, people will be able to see that. If you show some clips, those clips are actually from a Samsung phone. So we are already testing on the Google Store and testing on the Apple Store. So it'll be transitioning from a Telegram game to a full app-based game, just like Steam Runner. For now, you can stake and earn or play and earn SmackM tokens. We are in the process of adding a claim button so that we can include the partners that you see on the SmackM website so we can have other brands give out small amounts, just fractional amounts of their tokens so people can get familiar with them, hold those in their wallet, and hopefully start collecting those over time. I will say this, there has been a little delay. Our main dev for SmackM, as far as the token distribution goes, had a bicycle crash last week and broke his collarbone in 2 places, and is currently looking for a hospital that has a surgeon open to put everything back together again. So
Oh no.
you can smack a mosquito and they come back. You can smack our devs and they come back. You just got to give them a little time to heal.
And one of the things that I love about the Earthlings studio of games is it all goes through the portal. So all these rewards go through the regular Earthlings portal. You're not attaching your account in any way that you could jeopardize your account. And once you've done that once, all you have to do is log in with your regular portal login, no matter what the game is, and you're going to be able to get whatever rewards are being offered. So I know you have some things that are coming up. What's the latest when it comes to SmackM?
Okay, so you'll see the newest level coming up as the platinum sponsor for Karate Combat. We have something fun coming out in conjunction with that. It's a little different gameplay than you see on the first 2 boards, the bedroom and the dino level. So it's something new and exciting for people to play. But we also have, on the business side, we have a new light paper update with what I believe, and I've done some research, I believe it will be the largest token burn for any meme on Hedera. And we're not doing that to create price hype. When we launched on Meme Job, we bought the entire bond. And we did that so that we could add a lot of liquidity early. So we're positioned very strong with liquidity to support the SmackM token. But also we wanted more time, watch the market, see what's going to happen to plan out how we're going to distribute the tokens. So we're reducing the team supply, we're reducing the rewards amount, but it's still allowing us to provide a reward schedule for years and years to come without oversaturating the market with SmackM tokens.
Good stuff. I like how you guys are promoting other teams. I like how things are just kind of working together, like promoting Karate Combat, and then you can use some of their branding in your game, and just how we all kind of work together to pull this cart forward. So before I let you go, is there anything from the Earthlings side of things that you want to give us updates on, maybe the main game or anything else?
Oh, there's so much I want to tell you. I can't, but there's some big news on the horizon, some really cool updates on the horizon, some things that we've already finalized, but we can't share yet. I will say AI has been the big trigger, and our team's really good. I'm not a dev in any sense. We discussed that there's an issue with customer service in Web3, and I think from brands top to bottom, the biggest brands in the world have an issue with that. So Sjord, one of our devs for Smack Mosquito, is putting together an AI help desk for as Skeeter. So it'll be fun to see that develop. He's been working on it a bit. He's on vacation in New York from Europe now. When he gets back, hopefully that'll be launched on the website as well. So dabbling in gaming, AI, token, it's fun. It's just a fun project. I'm still with Earthlings. Had a couple people ask, hey, did you leave Earthlings? Nope. I just put a lot of time and effort into Smack Mosquito because we want to see it grow and help the community around us grow as well.
Well, we love everything that the Earthlings team is doing. We appreciate you coming on today and telling us about SmackM, and good luck.
Thanks, Brandon.
So another meme coin that made some waves this week was Gib. It made some waves particularly in the market because following what we covered last week with their AI assistant, it seems like the Hedera community really jumped on it and said, hey, this is one of the meme coins we want to get behind, and they bought it up. That caused a little bit of a ding to some of our other meme coins. We've got to get some outside capital in to get all of these going up, but it was great to see some of that capital flowing into a team that I know is working really hard. All right, so the next thing we're going to jump into is is the Underground Bowling Association is going to have their NFT mint on Kabila this Sunday. Early in the afternoon Eastern time, they're going to start off with some of their whitelists, and eventually they're going to make it to the public mint. Now, with these NFTs, you're actually buying booster packs. Each of these booster packs is going to include 10 trading cards, which will be used in an in-app card game to win UBA up-only gaming tokens. And the cards will also allow users to participate in the UBA token drops. Now, one of the things with UBA that I highlighted in a space yesterday is it's a little bit different animal than what we see with some of the other up-only gaming leagues. When we're talking about Karate Combat or Top Flight Football, it's all about the fans of Karate Combat or the Premier League. In this case, the UBA has over 10,000 people that are actually players, and they're actually all going to be getting their own playing cards in these booster packs. And it's more about them participating in the up-only gaming and participating in these NFTs and so forth. So it's a little bit different animal. I love how we're trying different things, different ways to apply this up-only gaming, and I wish them the most success. Another thing that was brought to my attention by CoinMan, the HBAR was a story that we saw posted on CoinGecko. It was authored by trader research and support firm FBS. They focused on 5 tokens they believe have high potential in this run that we all hope is on its way. One of those tokens was HBAR. They said the 2025 crypto bull cycle won't just reward hype. It'll put a spotlight on altcoins with real backbone. After years of regulatory uncertainty and brutal bear market volatility, institutions and businesses aren't speculating. They're looking for infrastructure, utility, and real growth. In this new landscape, altcoins with serious technology innovation, sound tokenomics, and growing adoption won't just stand out, they'll lead the way. As I outlined for myself earlier, they believe Alt Szn is coming as well. They say Alt Szn is a period when Bitcoin capital is transferred into other cryptocurrencies, producing large, multi-month price increases for most altcoins. Throughout history, altcoins have lagged the strong appreciation of Bitcoin early on. As the price of Bitcoin stabilizes or consolidates following a peak, investors look for higher returns in potential altcoins. According to a Tangem report, the rise in the interseasonal index signals a shift in attention away from Bitcoin and towards altcoins. Specifically on HBAR, they mentioned the benefits that we discuss on here regularly, the Hedera Council, and that they like how the HBAR chart looks. And now we're going to jump into some shark bites where Rob outlines what he's doing with the Reserve Bank of Australia. Rob, welcome back. It was nice seeing you a couple weeks ago in Switzerland, but we're back here in our own digs. How are things treating you?
Great. Yeah. Switzerland is always beautiful. And Zurich, put on a great show, hosted us really well. Lovely to see all our friends out there. So, yeah, it was good to catch up in person again.
That's for sure. But I'm not going to take any community questions this week because there's some really big news that dropped last week. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about this RBA CBDC pilot that we heard about? I know that, this is something that's been going on in the background for a while, but we got some big news last week.
It was kind of a step towards what hopefully will be big news, but it does warrant some explanation, and especially as it's in the public domain now. I can talk about things that are in the public domain. So a bit of a recap is Project Acacia is the Reserve Bank of Australia's tokenization program for this year. So previously they'd run CBDC pilots, and their approach is to engage with industry, to learn lessons, and to kind of figure out what's best for the Australian economy. And of course, this is happening elsewhere. The Bank of England finished a project called Project Meridian last year, which was kind of very similar. And they've moved beyond CBDCs per se, just specifically looking at CBDC use cases, but more economy-changing themes that are likely to be addressed by the digitization or the digitalization of different forms of money. And so Project Acacia is specifically focused on kind of tokenization and kind of institutional use cases for things like wholesale markets. So that could be real world asset tokenization. It could be, still be kind of top end of town, stablecoin or CBDC type use cases. And they partner with an organization called the Digital Finance Cooperative Research Center, the DFCRC, who we have heard about before, and who also helped run the CBDC pilot. So this is a partnership between the DFCRC, which is a public-private organization, which is set up largely to focus on matters of huge import, things that one organization on its own are unlikely to kind of shift the economy on, but where through collaboration of government or regulators or industry together, these big moves can be made, and they're always focused on a commercial outcome as well. So this is not kind of wheel spinning. This is these are big projects that are likely to move the whole economy ahead. And there are CRCs in other areas as well. So, it's kind of a model that Australia uses quite a lot. Not academic, R&D only, but also, with commercial outcomes in mind. So all of these are about setting up the Australian economy. In areas of agriculture, there's a big kind of green hydrogen CRC, and there are other CRCs that have kind of been created over the years. With that context in mind, you've got the Reserve Bank of Australia and the DFCRC running a tokenization with a focus on institutional use cases through 2025. And program really was to reach out to industry and get submissions for projects and use cases that the industry wanted to run within the context of what was set. And in December, I think the RBA published a consultation paper which set the framework for Acacia. And within that, it talked about 5 different settlement models. So how would one settle the payment for a tokenized asset in within a financial markets kind of context? And the expectation really was that industry, from across industry, it was an open request for RFIs, for requests for information responses. And these projects would reflect the theme from many angles, picking one or more of those settlement models that was proposed in the consultation paper. And not all of those settlement models require any kind of, or they all require some kind of digitalization, but they don't necessarily require blockchain or any other form of kind of digital money, nor do they all require CBDCs. So, these are kind of different variants on a theme, which through experimentation should lead to, better and more informed decision making by the Reserve Bank when it, ultimately decides what sorts of platform it's going to support. Now, the Reserve Bank has, and the Australian government, to be fair, have backed this model where they see a case for wholesale CBDCs. So CBDCs that operate between commercial banks and the central bank, for matters of efficiency and operationalization of those platforms. But they have stated on a number of occasions that they see the retail end of the CBDC not actually, solving any problems that Australia has, and would expect stablecoins and tokenized deposits and other forms of digital money to fill that gap. So private forms of digital money, which would then obviously be regulated, but would fill the gap between wholesale CBDCs and cash.
And Rob, just real quick to go down that line a little bit, I'm just curious. The wholesale CBDC, that makes sense to me. They're just using the same rails that we think are more efficient. There is a lot of concerns about retail CBDCs and the potential for government surveillance and concerns around that. A retail CBDC, that's a step further. And I do think that it makes an awful lot of sense to keep that in private hands, which is, the stablecoin solutions that we're already seeing coming out of teams like Tether and Circle and so forth. And then, we can see if there's concerns around additional surveillance around that, maybe not from the government, but however, those individual private entities then can come up with controls to prevent things like that. I think this is a good separation. Like, you can have CBDCs, they can do all their interbank settlement and whatever it may be, but the retail side should be taken care of, just like it generally has been with private money.
Yeah, and so a wholesale CBDC doesn't need to be on a public chain. It doesn't actually have to be on a chain at all. And so what we have seen around the world is, private networks or private forks of public layer ones like Ethereum, or by design private networks like Hyperledger, forming the network between the participating entities, usually the commercial banks and the central bank, for those particular use cases around wholesale CBDCs. But obviously, at the retail end of the spectrum, it doesn't make any difference at all. It doesn't make any change, and so that's still where the Reserve Bank is now. We're in May. We had hoped in March to actually have heard which of these projects were being included in Project Acacia, because the execution window is from the point of announcement through till about October, and then the Reserve Bank will consider all the learnings from those projects in a very kind of curated and governed way, and then issue a report by the end of the year before getting into the next phase for next year, which I'm quite excited about, but that's further down the track. So we'd expected to hear in March. We haven't heard yet, but the announcements are imminent. I understand, and it may even be this week. So we may even have to have a follow-on to this chat to talk about what has been announced. But I expect certainly by the beginning of June, because there's a steerco at the end of this month, so I suspect that'll be the decision point. And then when we're into June, we'll know which of the industry participants will have been included, and that's a full range, right? It's not just banks, it's fintechs, it's cross-border or internal payments organizations. There are other layer ones throwing their hat in the ring. There are the ones that are specific to cross-border payments, for example, or real-world asset tokenization. There are fund managers, and that there's a full gamut of different organizations. And what the Reserve Bank...
Rob, real quick, I just want to interrupt you. So there was a document that came out, or it was like a PowerPoint that came out that was publicly available. People were posting about it everywhere. I thought that was the announcement of which of these
no, I'm coming to that.
Things we're going to... Okay, all right, go ahead.
Sorry, it's a long build-up, but I'm kind of setting the scene so that we can kind of talk. We can drill down into what the announcement actually was, or what the publication was. So yes, so we've got all of these industry participants coming together, and what the Reserve Bank asked was that there was a lead entity and then a bunch of collaborating participants around them, because most of these use cases require counterparties or multiple parties, or a technology provider with a a fund manager and a stablecoin issuer and someone else. So each of these projects is an amalgam of parties within the industry that have come together, and some of these parties are actually working with different lead entities as well. So it's a pretty exciting different group, many of whom were participating in the CBDC pilot 2 years ago as well. So this is why it's taken the RBA quite a long time, because they're kind of teasing out both the participants, the use cases, whether they're proofs of concept or whether they're limited production pilots, which is pretty key for what we're about to talk about, because there are lots of proofs of concept being presented, but most people are over the wheel spinning of a proof of concept. They actually want to see things happen in live, in production, because in doing that, with the backing of the Reserve Bank, technology isn't the problem. It's the risk processes, the controls, the regulatory treatment of the assets being issued, whether there's some kind of waiver or sandbox style treatment from the various regulators here. So there's a lot of other things to consider in addition to just the technology. If you go into a production pilot, even if you're sending $10, right, from me to you, if it's real money, then and it's being backed by the Reserve Bank, you've got to get it right. So and internal organizations, especially enterprises and institutions, have lots and lots of controls to get through to even do that. So with all that said, what we got last week, we got a publication from the DFCRC, who, like I said, are running this this program of work. In it, there were the minutes of recent industry working group meetings. And one of the things that was listed was that several of the projects that are being considered by the Reserve Bank of Australia have requested CBDCs, wholesale CBDCs. Like I said, they don't all need CBDCs, but those that have requested CBDCs that have been shortlisted. And of those that requested CBDCs, there were 4 different chains onto which those projects want those CBDCs to be issued. And in amongst that group of 4, Hedera was one of them, which is amazing. I can't talk to the use cases that were, the projects. I think that will become apparent when the subsequent announcements are made. But what the Reserve Bank was looking for was kind of sovereignty of the network. So they've either requested a private network. So like I was saying earlier, wholesale CBDCs tend to be issued onto private networks for privacy and operational reasons. So they're looking for a private network, or one where they knew where all the nodes were, and they were all in Australia. We've got 4, with Hedera being there as a private Hedera. They've referred to. They're going for an Ethereum, and no surprise, an Ethereum fork, so a private Ethereum fork. And Red Belly, which is an Australian kind of academically backed startup, which has recently launched, and R3 Corda.
So, Rob, when you say a private version of Hedera, essentially a sphere?
Yeah. So
okay.
It doesn't have to be. It's open source now, so one could take the Hedera stack from Hyro and stand up one's own Hedera network. But a sphere is the ideal kind of solution, and this is an ideal use case for a sphere-style solution. So
now, when I think about Hedera, I think about the public network.
Right.
So I think we do need to tease out if this is a sphere, it's a hash graph based sphere, and then why is that beneficial for the Hedera network, the public network?
So, not talking about anything in particular, but hypothetically, so if the Reserve Bank of Australia wants to issue CBDCs onto a private network, that's all well and good. You can operate your use case within that network, but you're super limited. If you want to operate on a public network, you have to solve for interoperability between the private network and the public network. If you were operating a use case which looked at the themes for Project Acacia, which is delivery versus payment, and the payment end was in a form of digital money, deposit token or a stable coin, that's most likely to be on a public network. So the form of payment is most likely to be a stable coin, let's say, issued on an Ethereum or on Hedera. So the problem to be solved there is how do you synchronize, or how do you keep in step your wholesale CBDCs, or what would you use a wholesale CBDC for if your use case was on public networks? And so that's a very interesting question to be answered, and hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, that is fair enough. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. This is what we've been talking about in weeks past, is the reason to have a sphere, and that it's already set up to be able to interoperate with something like Hedera, so that it puts Hedera, the public network, in a really good spot if their things are built on these spheres.
Yeah, and from a Reserve Bank's perspective, they don't care whether it's implemented as a hash sphere or as a private instance of Hedera. The name they know. This is why the ecosystem's just been through a rebranding exercise, and the Hedera Foundation is now rebranded. Hedera is the name that people know. So for the Reserve Bank to list it in this document as private Hedera, I mean it's however that needs to be implemented. The key thing really is that the wholesale CBDC can't escape the paddock. because it's designed to be just there. But where all the funds being had in the other paddocks, the public networks, then you've got to be able to look over the fence and find out, and see what's happening on both sides. So I think that's the key issue here. In terms of real world assets and security tokens, they tend to still be on private networks. I mean, obviously, there's quite a lot on public networks. But for the purposes of the Acacia pilot, I wouldn't be at all surprised if some private networks were being used for issuing of tokens. So, but like I said, there's no need to use CBDCs in many of these projects. One of the interesting things that was kind of learned from the first CBDC pilot 2 years ago, and this has all been published in the reports, was that there were, I'm going to get the numbers wrong now, I think about 140 projects submitted for the CBDC program. 14 of those were selected. So 10% of the submissions were selected into the program. And about half of them were actually not CBDC projects, but stablecoin projects collateralized by a CBDC. So if you have a CBDC, which is kind of zero risk central bank money, effectively, so, CBDC is backed by central bank money. So banks have, in Australia, we call them exchange settlement accounts. So a commercial bank's bank account with the Reserve Bank, with the central bank, is called an ESA, an exchange settlement account. So what happened was, a bank would send, $1 million to their exchange settlement account. And then the Reserve Bank would issue $1 million worth of CBDC into a wallet for them to use on their use case. And some of these use cases were actually just used that $1 million worth of CBDC linked in some way to a stablecoin issuance, so that they could then have all the utility and extensibility and programmability of digital money within the use case that they were actually interested in. But those stable coins were backed by central bank money and therefore zero risk. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if that a similar approach was taken by some of the project participants in Project Acacia.
All right, so this is my last question. I just want to make sure and summarize and see if I have it right. So what was essentially announced is there's various platforms that have kind of been approved by Project Acacia to provide those wholesale CBDCs, and then there's going to be projects that leverage those use cases that are going to be announced here in the near future. Is that right?
Almost right. So the projects that are being considered have proposed one of these 4 different chains on which to issue the wholesale CBDCs. Whether or not they're delivering them themselves or have a partner to deliver them as part of the Acacia program of work, I don't know, because it's a kind of many-to-one relationship. So some of these private chains that are being used for the wholesale CBDCs, have multiple projects using them. And actually, once what we're led to believe is that not all of the project requests for CBDCs on chains those chains have been accepted. So there is a possibility that some of the projects that will be accepted won't get their first choice of wholesale CBDC chain, and therefore will be looking to use a different one. So those numbers may well change in terms of the use cases for those individual wholesale CBDC chains.
So it's still pretty opaque. We have gotten a little bit more information. Things are getting a little bit clearer, but it sounds like things are about to get a lot clearer here in the next few weeks.
Well, hopefully I've set the scene for the context, because it was important when Hedera is listed in amongst such a few peers, although it's peerless, of course. In a public document like that, I think it leads to lots of speculation and lots of misunderstanding. And given that the ultimate decisions are just a few weeks away at most, was important really just to kind of set the foundation, and then we can talk about the announcements when they come.
All right, Rob, that sounds good. So as soon as that comes out, we'll certainly get you back to give us the final piece of the news, take us that last mile. But we appreciate you taking the time today and filling us in on exactly what came out last week. We appreciate it.
Cheers. See you next week.
So huge thanks to Rob. Now, I know we didn't get to any community questions this week, but we are going to get back to that next week. So if you have any questions on the HBAR economy or the Hedera ecosystem, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. And with that, let's jump into some network analysis. No real change in throughput. We're still cruising at about 10 transactions per second, though when I checked on Hashpoint, it was a bit higher. We're maintaining a 2.5 second time to consensus finality. We created 11,000 accounts this week, are averaging around 400 hourly active users, and we're seeing a nice increase in revenue. Over the past day, we've seen $1,800 in revenue for the Hedera network. Now let's jump into the crypto and HBAR markets. You would have thought we would have learned our lesson that anything that Trump does is a self-induced crisis that can be turned around as easily as it's created. That happened this morning, and after all the excitement around Bitcoin making a new all-time high and HBAR being comfortably up on the week, we saw a pretty good dip. What Trump said is that Apple needs to move all of its production of iPhones onshore, or they're going to face a 25% tariff. This hit risk assets pretty hard. Bitcoin is down 2.5% on the day, but up 5% on the week and is currently sitting at about $109,000. HBAR is about flat on the week, but down over 3% on the day to 19.7 cents. Still, we're seeing a series of higher highs and higher lows, so that is certainly constructive. So I can barely keep up when it comes to the Hedera network. We were talking about how we saw an increase up to $180 million worth of HUSDC minted on the network. Just this morning, that went up to $196 million, and now that's up to $214 million worth of the stablecoin minted on the Hedera network. We also saw some big news come out of Dovu. Over $1 billion worth of soil carbon credits have been pledged to their platform, which of course means those real-world assets are going to be coming to the Hedera network. So looking forward to next week. I'm going to have some more news on that big hackathon that's coming. It should be pretty massive. I think you guys are going to be surprised. Besides that, we're also going to be getting another up-only gaming team on for an interview, and I'm working on a few other things as well. As always, we're going to get Rob back for Shark Bites, so if you have any questions on the Hedera ecosystem or the HBAR economy, again, drop those questions down below in the comments. That's all we have. We'll see you next week.